blessed for us to be alive. Today is 4th of April 2021. It's a long holiday, started with the Easter, and we are still going on. Now, there are some simple things that we need to learn as a nation, even as we are going ahead to fight this particular pandemic. It's very important for all of us to partner together. Even with the government regulation, it's a matter of, if it's a matter of going for the vaccination, it's very important. If it's a matter of keeping the social distance and cleaning our hands and ensuring that all the regulations as far as the fight for this particular pandemic is concerned, we need to just stay put and stay together. So we felt it so nice and so good that we connect even with our viewers, we connect even with our fellow brethren wherever they are at this particular time that the nation is trying actually to fight this particular pandemic. And as believers, actually, we need to really just follow the simple instruction. I don't know how difficult it is. I don't know how big it is for us. I listened recently to a man of God who was speaking in Kenya, and at one point I feel so much disappointed. At one point I feel so much pain in me. At this time when the government is really trying, and as religious leaders, as pastors, as bishops, it's always very important that we learn to listen to the voice of our leaders. It doesn't matter how well your church is, it doesn't matter how well composed your congregation is. What matters as a servant of God is that you have to listen to the voice of the leaders. That is also found in the Bible, that because when you go against the voice of the leaders, because leaders are not just made anyhow. These are people that have been appointed by God to lead us. They speak for the nation, and whatever thing they express to us as the inhabitant of that particular nation, we need to take note of that. Now, for a servant of God just to come from the blues and says that it's wrong for the country to be under lockdown, that it's wrong even to close the places of worship, because that is where people meet, that is where people do their daily worship. I agree, that is where we do our worship. But at the same time, even when you read in the stories in the Bible, the chronology of what the pandemic that happened during the past times, there's a time when God now instructed his servants to maybe isolate himself, either isolate a generation for a particular reason. At this particular time, we just need to isolate ourselves so that we can fight this particular deadly pandemic. We've seen how this pandemic is raging war within other nations. We saw what happened in Italy. Actually, most of the virus which really struck Italy was coming from the church. When you study deeply the kind of infection and the infection pattern which happened in Italy, then you realize that at one particular church service, the people who gathered there, when they leave those particular church gathering, but out of love, as Christian as we are, you greet your neighbor, you hug them, you say hi, out of passion you care for the sick in the hospital, and then the rate at which that particular pandemic rages war in that particular time in Italy was of a very high magnitude. And even in our own continent, in Africa, we've seen what happened to other nations. The people who decided to defy very simple orders of just, can people do the hand sanitizing? Can we keep the social distance? Can we have our face mask? We saw what happened. It's not just too early for that. It's not late for that. We saw it just the other time. If the top government of a nation can be wiped out in a span of 1 month, you are talking of the army general, you are talking of the ministers, you are talking even for the top hierarchy of that particular government was raised down just because of refusing to take simple steps. Sometimes God can be speaking to us through the leaders that we elected. But as church leaders, we are saying, no, we are not going to follow this. We want to be left alone. We want to go to church. We want to worship God. Now, I asked myself one question, that who are these pastors representing? Who are these bishops representing? You know, it's very funny how some churches, and more so in my nation, Kenya, what they have really turned into. Some of these churches are like milking institutions. They milk their congregants even when they go dry. Some of the pastors don't even care whether you go angry. Some of the pastors and even bishops, they don't care. They don't even know where you are coming from. They have less time even to interact with you during the time you visit their service. They can only subject to the ushering ministry, because even them, they have some hierarchy. When you hear that kind of transmission which is going on, is that, you know, even in our congregation, we have the nurses, we have the frontline workers who can do this thing better than that. Now I ask myself, have you asked yourself why this vaccination is not being done with any Tom, Dick and Harry? Why it's not being done like the malaria? Why it's not being done like the polio? Because of the risk that is involved. That is why a specific group of doctors have been trained to carry out that particular thing. What we need to do as a nation is to stay put. What we need to do as a nation is to follow simple regulation. When you read in the Bible, when the servant of God was told by Elisha that you need to go into the river Jordan and dip yourself 7 times. That was 7 times. We are just in the second lockdown. And it's not even lockdown for the whole nation. It's a lockdown for zone A, or a particular zone. And we are just wailing up and say, you know, we cannot take this anymore. We need to reopen. We want to do our business. The people of Italy did it. Yes, they wanted to do their business. They wanted things to be normal. They wanted to defy any odds and say, no, our lives must go on as usual. Let me ask you today, how many billions of money are in the accounts in Italy? How many billions of money have been left behind with even the politicians? In our nation, how many politicians have we lost? In our nation, how many leaders have we lost to this particular pandemic? How much money do they have in their account, which, you know, nobody even knows about? You know, but when this particular pandemic came into the nation, it was like, you know, we were like, we are not sure whether the pandemic is there. But it has knocked doors and doors, and it's just next to us from time to time. So what we need to do is let's just follow simple instruction. It happened in the book of 2 Kings chapter 5, when you read down one, when the servant of God was told, go and dip yourself in the river Jordan 7 times. He never complained. When God was up to deliver children of Israel from captivity, they were told at this particular time, the angel of the Lord will come and will strike the firstborns. Their firstborns were never found outside. Their firstborns were in the house. They never went out and say, you know, we belong to the chosen generation, so we just want to walk around and about, to mingle around and about. No. It also happened in Sodom and Gomorrah when God went there with his wrath to destroy that city. It happened. Yeah? And the people who believe, yes, what is wrong with you? Yeah. So it has been said that we need to stay put. Let us stay indoors. When pandemic came to rage war, it happened even in the Bible. The servant of God, Job, had it. Everything was lost. These things we crave for, we want to build the economy. Our life, you know, the life that you live now becomes less important to the economy you want to create. Yeah, you know, I need the employment. So you really don't. Who gives life is God. But it comes to a time you don't care so much about your life. You don't want to care about, you know, how will I even be tomorrow? So you are like, I only need a job. I want to keep my job. I want we want the hotels to run. We want the economy to be running. We want people to be traveling from point A to point B. You know, you can't keep at us hold in this nation. And you look at how it happened even in those particular nations, those other nations that we are fully aware of. What really happened with the simple movement of people from point A to point B, from the areas which were regarded like this is the hot zone for this particular virus? What really happened to other nations? What really happened to those other zones where they went to? People died. And let me speak to the church, the body of church. Let me speak to the ministries in the nation of Kenya specifically. Stop misleading this nation. Stop misleading this country. It's not business as usual. You wake up to your social network, and you open so much TV channels, and you really wonder, when you go to this particular TV channels, what you hear is the DJ Afro going on, what you hear is a pay bill number, what you hear is M-Pesa number. You run financial activity in your institutions from January to January. You don't even care where people get all this money. When you are from a church buying a church plot, you go immediately to church construction, you go immediately to church furniture, you go immediately to church. You want to go out, you want to do so many things. Then you're like, these are the same people that you are milking. And when now the government say we are closing down, my friend, you are seeing things are not working because you are in business. My friend, I'm telling you are in business. You don't care whether they live today or whether they die. You don't care. I was walking in the street of Nairobi yesterday evening. That is 2nd April 2021. Do you know we are in lockdown? Do you know we are in curfew? But a church downtown in Nairobi CBD, is operating at night. They have the worship team worshiping like, we just want to make it cool. And when they are there, they sneak out, they go back to the estates. How many people they meet along the way? Yeah. When you go along come to Mombasa Road and you go to the Migingo Center, down there's a church there, and I was really shocked. The church is operating past the curfew hour. The church is on. And I was like, where are we? And you find these pastors, these servants of God bragging in and about that, with us, sisi tunaenda kanisa tu mpaka tuombe Mungu. Ni Mungu ametupea inchi mpaka tuombe. The same God amekupea inchi, the same God amekupea leaders of this nation. You have to heed their voice. You have to listen to what they are telling us. Because, for a president just to come up and say, ladies and gentlemen, ni kubaya. Tunafunga inchi hapa, tunafunga Nairobi, tunafunga these specific counties. This is zone A. It's not a joke for a president even to come with the one and say, my friend, watu wamekufa watatu, ujue watu wamekufa. So we cannot treat it business as usual. No, we have to ask ourselves, what kind of standards, or what kind of standards do our pastors and even bishops stand for? I take this time to urge us, Kenyans, because now we have the vaccine, people are going for it. At first we had a lot of complaint. Oh, this vaccine is for family planning. Oh, this vaccine had a lot of side effects. I'm like, seriously? So this is what we need to do as a nation. Let's go for the vaccine. Let's protect the future generation. Now, at this particular time, it doesn't matter what your pastor or bishop says. It's about protecting the future generation. This is the time, because God has used even the leadership of the nation to say, hey, ladies and gentlemen, you need to stop from here. This is the course we need to take. We know there are a lot of things which needs to be done, yes, but we have to do our part. Our part is following all government regulations. Our part is ensuring that we partner with the government agencies that are fighting this particular pandemic. Our part, in fact, even as you see people walking in the streets of Nairobi, that they are protesting that we need to go back to work, that the nation needs to be open. Then you look at the nation and you're like, okay, we have so many jobs there overseas. It happened. Go to Italy. They had so many jobs. No one is going for those jobs again. Why? Because the whole generation was almost wiped out. Let us take our step. Let us have our part. We are not going to allow pastors who are greedy of money. We are not going to allow bishops and prophets who don't even care whether we are sick. The ministry who don't even care whether we live or we die, to come and confuse us with simple things. In the name of, we must open. We pray, even me, I pray all the time. In our church, in my house, I pray. Yeah. The reason why you want these churches to be open, the reason why you feel the churches should just be on, is that you feel that the people you are milking are now not there, and you lack somebody to milk. That is what is happening. Yeah, so it doesn't matter how much you parade in the social network, in the televisions, in those particular television network and I think the government also need to do something as of now. Yeah, this is a pandemic that we are fighting. So we are not going to allow like people to just come up and say, we don't need this thing to be done. We want the nation to be opened up. We want to do businesses as usual. We are like, hey, we have people are operating during the daytime. So you are told even at night, just stay at home. So if you are a pastor and you can't stay even in your house for 1 week, you can't stay in your house for 1 month, what kind of pastor are you? The leadership of the pastoral ministry of Kenya must come together and speak in one voice and advise their congregants according on what needs to be done and advise them on how to listen to the voice of the leadership of this nation. I'm afraid that if we are not going to follow these simple instructions, today is 4th April 2021, 1 year down the line, we might lack even what to say. I've studied the pattern of this pandemic. I've seen even in the neighboring countries what has happened. There are things we didn't believe can happen. I have seen the top government being wiped down up. And so I'm telling even the pastors in this nation that if we are not going to tell our people the truth, if we are not going to advise our people in the zoned areas to stay at home and to stay safe, if we are going to encourage our worship teams to sneak in the church and do the things they have been doing, if we are going to defy the order of the government that people, all gatherings, if we are not going to hear the voice of the leaders that we are having, if we are not going to follow simple instructions, then I'm afraid that the worst is coming. God gave us a sign with just a neighboring country on what can happen when we defy simple instruction from the leaders, not only the leader of a nation, but the very simple leaders that we're having. If we are going to defy that, if we are going to be arrogant in anything that comes our way and we say we cannot do that, we are doing it our way, then the worst is yet to come for Kenya. The worst is yet to come. Even for the zoned areas, the worst is yet to come. I don't know whether you even go through the statistics of what happened before a bishop comes or a pastor comes and say, in our church, a bishop was saying, in our church we have nurses. So you have nurses in your church, you have frontline workers. Do you know there's a church in Kawangware, there's a church in Kayole, there's a church down there in Githurai, there's a church down there in Choka, who doesn't even have those frontline workers you are parading for us. And so you feel the whole nation is like your church, where you are. The whole nation have those frontline workers you are parading. You are so much pride and arrogance to the voice of leadership of this nation. And you feel like you have what it takes. Let me tell you, you have sanitizers, you have frontline workers, you have screening machines, the thermal guns, you have them, even in the entrance and everywhere. So you think the people in Italy didn't have those things? They didn't have them in Italy, up there. When I was studying a story of a church in Rome, in Italy, then I realized that in the whole church, only 10 people were left. A church over 100 plus people. They had everything. This is not the time of chest thumping, of my church does what, kanisa letu iko na hii, ndio inafanya hii, we can organize big meetings, sisi tunajitegemea, tunanunua hand sanitizers, tunaweza nunua barakoa, Sasa tuachwe sisi tuende kanisani, kanisa letu ni kubwa? Like seriously? We must learn to obey the voice of the leadership of this nation. Today is 4th April 2021. We will one day remember this. But when we are going to follow the voice and the direction that we are given, then as a nation, we are going to save the future generation. May God bless you so much.